Before this video starts, I'd just like to apologise for the audio issues in this video. I plugged my mic in and for some reason it didn't work with Audacity, so thank you technology. So yeah, apologies for that, we'll get it fixed for the next episode, but I hope you enjoyed this video. Hello everyone and welcome back to the European Football Roundup. I just want to say a big thank you for the support on the first episode. It did pretty well, and we're going to be continuing doing the same thing as always. We're going to be summing up the action from La Liga, Serie A and the Bundesliga, bringing you the lowdown on all of those leagues, the goals, the goal scorers, who's performing well, who isn't. Let's get straight into it. So we'll start off in La Liga as always, and at top of the table, Atleti dropping points 2-2 against Celta Vigo. Really gut-wrenching draw for them, conceding in the last minute a Ferreira goal in the last minute from a cross as well, cross across the box, which was pretty much the theme of the goals for this game. Santi Mina put Celta Vigo ahead before the break. Luis Suarez equalised from a cross and did pretty much exactly the same thing. Lodi with a brilliant ball across the face of the box. Suarez slides in and finishes it for 2-1, and then in the last minute Celta Vigo pretty much did exactly the same thing to Atleti. So very much a similar theme in terms of all the goals in this game. And Luis Suarez again, though, another brace for him, really showing that he's got the goal scoring capabilities to get them to a league title, and it sort of begs the question really why Barcelona let him go in the first place to really, I guess, a direct title contender. You know, Atleti do have the power to be able to take on Barcelona and Real Madrid, so it was a bit strange that they let him go considering how good he's been and how good he is as well. But a really good result for Celta Vigo, not so much for Atleti, who, you know, at home you need to win these games. The lead is only, I think, what, 9 points? No, it's 8 points now. 8 points ahead of Barcelona, who won. So yeah, it's a tough one for Atleti to take, but there's plenty of positives to take in terms of the fact they're still scoring goals. But they really need to start seeing out these wins if they're to win the league, because dropping points like this, we've seen teams claw back at title challenges after they've dropped points against teams that they should be beating, really. So keep your eye on that one. Well, Barcelona, they played out a 3-2 win against Real Betis. Very entertaining game. Messi getting on the score sheet again, and actually Trincao getting on the score sheet. A player that they brought in for a lot of money, young Portuguese player, hasn't really had much of a say in Barcelona's side so far. He hasn't had much success. It's another player that they've spent big money on that hasn't really worked out so far, but he got the goal today and it was a really good performance. They fought back a couple of times. Iglesias actually gave Real Betis the lead, and then Barcelona turned the game around with 2 goals. Ruiz equalised, but then in the 87th minute Trincao getting the winner. So really important win for Barcelona. That means that they closed the gap by 2 points to Atleti. Of course, they were 10 points behind, now 8 points behind, and they've now got a glimmer of hope, really. I think that 10-point gap is always one that seems unassailable, but as soon as you start getting points, then all of a sudden it doesn't seem so big and you can start to catch up. And with the form that Barcelona are in, they've really turned things around under Koeman. They've won a really good run of consecutive wins. If they can keep that up, then there's no reason why they can't catch up with Madrid. Now on to the other side of Madrid, with Real. They beat Huesca by 2-1, and a pretty close fought one, really. It seems to be the theme with Real Madrid's wins these days. They either batter teams or they get really close results, and it was another one of those. And it's actually been, it was actually a player that sort of had a bit of stick this season, to be honest. Rafa Varane getting a brace in the 55th and 84th minute. Really big goals for him, particularly because he's been under quite a lot of criticism for his performances this season, and there's been quite a lot of people online saying that he's dropped off, but he's still a world-class player. He's a World Cup winner, you know, and 2 goals there, real sort of leaders' performance to get Real Madrid over the line. And of course they are sort of used to having goal-scoring centre-backs with Sergio Ramos in the side as well, although most of those tend to be penalties. But yeah, it is. It's an important win for Real Madrid because it means, of course, that they keep up with Barcelona, who are both neck and neck at the moment, and then both of them are really chasing down Atletico Madrid. So It'll be interesting to see whether they can catch up. Personally, I think that they probably will. Looking at the table here, both on 43 points, it's definitely not unassailable. A couple of draws here and there for Atleti, and Barcelona and Real Madrid could very easily get back into that position for fighting for the title. So it is one of those really that you can really see going down to the wire. Now, completing the top 4 is Sevilla, who won 3-0 at Getafe. And yet again, showing that the sort of the form that they're in, really good goals. Of course, it was much easier against 10 men, but El Haddadi, Gomez, Alejandro Gomez getting his first goal, and Yusuf El Nasiri as well, getting 3 goals after Jene, the Getafe centre-half, was given a red card. And they pretty much took full advantage of it. 2 goals in the last couple of minutes of the game as well, to really sort of seal the win. Getafe fought hard, but in the end it was just too much pressure from Sevilla in the end, and this result leaves Getafe really sort of stranded. They're struggling this season in 13th place, whereas last season they were competing for the Champions League, Europa League. This season they've really struggled, and it's been a strange old season for them. But this result means that Sevilla can pull away from Villarreal, who drew again. They seem to be having some issues at the moment of trying to get those wins. Drawing with Elche, who are struggling down at the bottom end of the table in 19th place. You've got to win those games, and the problem is with Villarreal is that they've been far too inconsistent this season so far. 4 draws in a row after a really good start, which saw them fighting in the top 3. They've sort of dropped off and fallen off the pace a little bit, which does tend to be the case with teams like this that sort of shoot up out of nowhere. We've seen in recent seasons in the Bundesliga and in La Liga that teams like that tend to lose momentum. In Serie A it's slightly different. You've got teams like Atalanta that manage to keep it up. But in those leagues it's the same with Sociedad, who are 6th at the moment. They were, again, start of the season fighting for the title, but they drop off, and that's the difference. So if we move on to Serie A, we'll probably start with Friday's game, which was Inter Milan. They beat Fiorentina by 2-0. Nico Barella and Ivan Perisic with the goals for the side, which keeps them in touching distance to AC Milan. Of course, both sides competing for the title this season, and it's going to be a pretty close fought one. There's only 2 points between the sides, and they both seem to be winning games at the moment. AC Milan then themselves, they beat Crotone by 4-0. Crotone just really struggling this season, and AC Milan took full advantage of that. Ibrahimovic got another brace. I mean, this guy is he's a bit like Ronaldo really, both sort of defying their ages and still performing at the top level, still scoring goals, still being leaders for their side as well. And I don't think anyone could have foreseen him being this good for AC Milan. I think he probably might have, but I don't think anyone else really saw him leading a title charge for AC Milan. But that's been the case, and Ante Rebic as well with another brace. He's been another player that's stepped up after struggling in recent years. I think that's sort of been the case for most of the AC Milan team, to be honest. They didn't have wholesale changes, but Hakan Çalhanoğlu, Rafael Leao as well getting an assist, and Hernandez. So 3 different players contributing with assists, 2 different players getting braces. There's a lot of quality in and around this entire AC Milan squad. Any player can make a difference for them, and we've seen that so far this season. There was another huge game in the top 4, Juventus against Roma. Now, I've been talking about how Roma could potentially push for the title and compete, but they maybe don't have the same quality as the other sides, and that's been the case. Juventus playing out a really professional 2-0 win. A fantastic game and result for them. Ronaldo getting on the score sheet again, the 2 big players for AC and Juventus stepping up. And I did say that Juventus have been decent under Pirlo, and that things do seem to be changing. There has been some inconsistencies, but on the whole, I think that they look fairly decent. Still rely heavily on Ronaldo, it has to be said, but they certainly play with that more sort of high press passing style that Pirlo wanted to put in when he joined the club. So you can see that there's progress to be made. It is very much a transition season for them. We'll have to wait and see to see if that they can really push on. I think they can. They're in really good form at the moment. They've won 4 out of their last 5, only losing 1. They've only lost 2 games this season. They're starting to concede less goals, and I think that there's a real promise about them this year to really push AC and Inter Milan for the title. It's going to be such a good title race this year. I can't wait. For Roma, this leaves them on 40 points and in danger of dropping out of the top 4, with Lazio hot on their tail, continuing their good run of form. They've won 5 in a row, 5 of their last 5. Really, really impressive stuff from Lazio. They got a solid 1-0 win over Cagliari. And to be honest, if things carry on the way they are, I genuinely would put Lazio for good contenders for top 4. They really pushed for the title last year. They're not too far behind this year. You've got to remember, AC Milan are only on 49 points, which is not that much of a gap. You know, a 9-point gap between first and fifth is certainly a very, very close one indeed. So Napoli and Lazio. So Lazio could really sort of make a late push for it. Ciro Immobile as well, 14 goals this season. What a crucial player he is for Lazio, you know. Every season, constantly gets at least 20 goals. He's been getting 30 plus goals the past couple of years as well. So really, really crucial for their title charge if they want to put one together. You know, a few people might laugh and say, well, there's no way they're going to be able to keep up with AC and Inter, but they genuinely pushed really well last season, and they sort of faltered towards the end and finished a little bit lower down. But I genuinely think if they can continue this form, there's no reason why they can't. Onto the Bundesliga now, and Bayern Munich kept up their good form and their 7-point gap at the top of the Bundesliga with another solid 1-0 win. They beat struggling Hertha Berlin, who are on a real sort of slipping slide of form at the moment, down in 15th place. They've lost their last 4 now, in danger of being dragged into that relegation playoff place, which is currently held by Arminia Bielefeld. But Bayern showed that sort of champions-elect quality about them to grind out wins against teams that try and shut them out, and that's what good champions do, really. And they've done that season in, season out, and Kingsley Coman got the goal as well. Thomas Mueller with the assist. One of the players that maybe goes under the radar, really, Thomas Mueller, for fans outside of the Bundesliga. You know, such an important player for Bayern Munich, consistently gets in the goals and the assists, and is a real leader for that team. And Kingsley Coman as well, really important goal for his season in particular, so that he can potentially hit the ground running. And yeah, it's just those little results that can sort of knock the confidence of teams in second place, like Leipzig, who are trying to catch up. But of course, you know, when you see Bayern getting those 1-0s and just scrapping games out, you start to lose that belief. And I think that's what Bayern do really well. Thomas Muller, I think it was Muller that said it in a press conference, or I can't remember who said it, but you know, they want opponents to feel like they've lost before the games even began. And I think sometimes that is the case with Bayern Munich, especially in the Bundesliga. They just have such a presence about them. And this momentum is only good for them, really, because other teams will start to falter. Well, we talked about Leipzig last year and their inconsistency. Last week. I'm losing it. And they beat Schalke by 3-0. Real shame to see what's happening at Schalke, by the way. Only 8 points this season. And in real danger of getting relegated as well, which is a real shame for a club of that size. It's a crime that they're even in this position, to be honest. Terrible ownership. But Leipzig made use of that poor momentum that Schalke were on and absolutely smashed them 3-0. 2 defenders getting on the score sheet in Mueller and Orban, and then Sabitzer getting the other one as well. Marcel Sabitzer, fantastic form for them so far this season. Real one of the standout players of their side. But it's one of those where you can Leipzig keep up. I mean, they're only 7 points behind, but if you look at the form, they do get those. They are prone to those little lapses in concentration and losing or drawing a couple of games where they should be winning. And I think that's the inconsistency that's going to really sort of damage their season. But if you look at their record, it's really not that bad. I think Bayern Munich are just far too good. They just keep getting results, and that's sort of the issue, really. Wolfsburg, they kept up their really good form. 4 wins on the bounce now for them. They beat Augsburg by 2-0, which puts them on 38 points. They're still only 3 points behind Leipzig, so they could very easily sneak into runners-up. I think if you're looking at it realistically, Frankfurt, Wolfsburg and Leipzig are probably going to be competing for runners-up. I can't see Bayern Munich really letting slip, particularly under Hansi Flick, who's just turned them into a different animal, really. Champions League winners. But Wolfsburg are definitely improving this season. And they're already, you know, far better off than they were last campaign, where they were sort of struggling to fight for that Europa League spot. And this season they've really turned it on. And it was a comfortable win against Augsburg, professional as well, another clean sheet, which is always good. They haven't conceded too many goals this season, only 19, which is actually 7 less than Bayern Munich, which in perspective, when you put in perspective, really tells you how good defensively they've been. And Leipzig as well, obviously, who've only conceded 17. Frankfurt themselves kept up their push as well. They got a convincing 3-1 win against Hoffenheim, which also keeps up the pressure on Wolfsburg. So there's definitely a lot of room for change in that sort of positions in the table. But I'll tell you what, who had a shocker this week was Borussia Dortmund. Another defeat for them. Really, really poor form at the moment. Only 1 win in their last 5. 3 of those are defeats. And there seemed to be something not quite right. Of course, they are under a caretaker manager. But they could really do with getting someone in. And the problem is that who do they get in? Because there's not really much that they can do. Freiburg are a team that they should be beating anyway, but to lose 2-1 is a real disappointment. I guess the big positive for them would be that Moukoko scored again. The young striker, he's got plenty of potential and he's certainly shown promise this season. Maybe not as many goals as he would have wanted, but for a young lad who's just coming through, I think he's certainly got potential to be a top player. I think this is, again, can you call it a transition season? Possibly, but the problem is with the transition season, you've got to know what you're transitioning to, and I'm not really sure if Dortmund know what they're transitioning to at the moment. Erling Haaland is really their sort of golden boy. You know, the man has 20 goals this season, which is just ridiculous, particularly, and he's played in 19 matches as well. But then if you go down to their next goal scorer, it's Sancho, who's on 5. So you really got to look at the stats and think that they're relying far too heavily on Erling Haaland. And he'll probably go in the summer. I can't imagine him staying after another season like that at Dortmund. He might stay one more campaign, but you know, I can see him moving to the Premier League, La Liga maybe, taking a bit of a step up. I think he probably will go to the Premier League. The question is which team. But yeah, really there's a lot of struggles at Dortmund at the moment. They need to really pick things up if they're to try and compete for Champions League. You know, there's a possibility they might not even get that, which would be a real shame for the club. So that brings you up to date on all the action from the top 3 leagues aside from the Premier League. Let me know in the comments if you want any other leagues covered, and also give me suggestions for other videos that you might want to see on the channel. I hope you enjoyed this series. Make sure to subscribe to WDSportz for more content. We're going to be bringing you plenty of content over lockdown whilst non-league football isn't going at the moment. It's a real struggle for us considering we're a non-league channel and we can't do any non-league content, but we hope you enjoy the content that we're bringing to you at the moment. Stay tuned for more and I hope to see you in the next one.